Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Okay. Welcome to The Long Road. I'm your host, Kris Roberts. First thing I would like to say is next Tuesday is the Keene Board of Education elections. They'll be held at the rec center for all people in Keene, all 5 wards. There'll be 3 individuals up for election, and I think there's 4 going for the 3 spots. They will also be the school budget proposal. And there will also be, I think there's 2 or 3, I think it's 3 contracts up for the public vote. I think it's important that people understand that on the contracts in the first year, you'll see a large number. And the large number is to help catch up to the losses that this group went through. These groups were under contract on the old type of system, and then with the inflation rate, Social Security went up 8.7, then I think 5.9, and then 3. So 8 at 16. So basically, inflation devalued the value of what you were getting paid by about 20%, while these people were under an old contract. And we want to make sure that the contracts pass, so hopefully we can fill in some shortages that we have. Yes, I'm a member of the Keene Board of Education, and that's why I think these contracts are really important to pass. I think they're fiscally responsible contracts. And so, but on the thing, yes, I was the finance chair, but when it comes to the budget, we, as the finance committee, we cut out a lot of stuff. And basically, the only increase that was in the budget was increases in publicly approved contracts. And so that's what we were looking for. That's what we're understanding. And I think overall the budget is a really good budget. And it was a hard budget, but the finance committee understood what was needed and what wasn't needed. And we tried to keep it a tight budget. And the proposed budget that went to the full board from the finance committee was approved by recommendation, and then the full board approved it. And so that was the number that the full board liked. And some people in the audience exercised their right, and they added $500,000 to the budget. Okay, and far as I have a long time practice of not endorsing anybody for the city council or for the school board or the state house, because, you know, why should someone, a voter, depend on my endorsing somebody? What the voter needs to do is look at each individual and determine what individual would meet your needs and the overall needs of the community. Sometimes when you endorse somebody, you expect something in return. Politics should never be like that. And so, again, next Tuesday, Keene Rec Center, go out and vote. I think it's important as many people as possible get out there and vote. It's important that people have buy-in. And that's what we want the people to do. A couple of days ago, and even going back to September of last year, it seems that the federal government told people overseas, the big one was the big four. Let me get this if I remember right here. Okay, was Venezuela, Haiti, Haiti, Cuba, and one other country. So what this does, if you're in Cuba or Venezuela or Haiti, all you had to do was get on the app and say, hey, I want to come to the United States. And so then what happened was the United States chartered aircraft and went to those countries and loaded up the aircraft for people, quote unquote, who were supposed to be applying for asylum, and flew them into the United States. And according to this one in the Freedom of Information Act, so the president had the Border Patrol, Customs, Homeland Security go in, see what's on the app, and say, for example, okay, we have 200 people who want to, say, Caracas, Venezuela, who want to come to the United States and apply. So we, on American taxpayers, sent the plane down to Caracas, Venezuela, picked up the 200, and then flew them into one of 43 cities around the United States. So while we have people complaining how bad the governor of Texas doing by sending them to bus and stuff, the president of the United States was having Homeland Security basically do the same thing. And so what they're talking about, Homeland Security, right now, are going in, and basically what they're looking at is about 320,000 immigrants, or not immigrants, migrants, were picked up, flown into the United States, and dropped off in one of 43 cities. And looking upon it, reading it, they may never even have told the cities that these planes were coming in. And in the CIS report, the basically the Customs and Border Patrol have stated that the names of the 43 U.S. airports that have received over 320,000 migrants from January to December 2023, nor the foreign airports which they departed. Basically, it's saying that to provide that information where the planes, what foreign countries that the planes were flying out, what cities, foreign cities, and what cities in America that these migrants are being dropped off. And so there's another way that the United States taxpayers on this right here, they're giving out, and it says, please help me, I do not speak English. What plane do I need to take? Thank you for your help. Gloria, a 22-year-old migrant from Honduras, 8 months pregnant with her first child, sits in a car on the Romanian Respite Center run by Catholic Charities across the bus station in McAllen, Texas on December 15, 2022. She holds a sign in which a visiting Catholic priest handwrote, I'm pregnant. Can you help me for a wheelchair to bring me to my gate? After that, she worried that she didn't know how to navigate the connecting flights that will take her to her acquaintance in Florida. Well, here's a couple of things. Catholic Charities is being nailed because they've been caught providing safe routes for the migrants to come in. Okay. If you're 8 months pregnant, you're not getting on a plane in the United States. They're going, hey, no, you're not going because you have a risk of having birth at any time. Okay? Which means also in 1 month, in 3 to 4 weeks, well, that was last year, so she's already had the baby. That baby is a U.S. citizen. And even if the mother was scheduled for deportation, she would not be deported because it isn't going to happen because you can't deport an American citizen and that child is an American citizen. And so on the other part, Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Not bad. So I look at both of those. They almost have a combined age of 160 years. Joe Biden is going downhill. Donald Trump is having mental freezes and different shaking. And a lot of times those mental freeze-ups and some of the things he's going, those are kind of some telltale signs or warning signs of TIAs. Kind of like the mini strokes, the small ones. And what are mini strokes for? Mini strokes give you a warning because you have an increased possibility of getting a major stroke. And the president mental decline is to be expected. 81 years old. Donald Trump may be having TIAs and some of those issues. That's to be expected. What is he, 77 years old and he's obese? That's a lot to ask from, you get two old guys flying around the country and doing this and doing that, have to answer questions. You know what? Most of our really good presidents have been in the 50s, in the 60s. You know, being in your 70s and 80s, both are past their prime, and it's a time for a transition. Abraham Lincoln said, if you really want to know about the character of an individual, give them power. Then you'll discover the true character. You know, and then I read another quote, which said Abraham Lincoln was partly correct with that quote. He says the most dangerous thing is when a person refuses to give up their grip on power. Joe Biden and Donald Trump, neither one want to give up their grip on power. It's kind of like the only reason why each guy is living is because they want that power. It's kind of like that power defines, it's like they're saying every night, that power defines me. If you have to be defined by how much power you have or what position you have, then your leadership abilities and your leadership skills, your leadership characters are highly questionable. You go all the way back to the ancient Greek philosophers, is the person who has no need for power is usually the best person to give that position. It goes all the way back to Cincinnatus in Rome. He saw that his country was under threat. He left his farm, became a general, helped save his country, and he basically was one of the most powerful guys in Rome. Goes, nope, I did it. I don't need power. I'm going back to my farm. George Washington, most powerful individual in the newly formed United States. Commander-in-Chief, Continental Army, a whole bunch of stuff. And there were so many people that wanted him to be King George I of the United States. He said no. Goes, okay, I will serve as President of the United States. After his second term, he goes, no, I'm done. This is enough. And went back to his plantation. So from George Washington on until Franklin Roosevelt, plain and simple, the rule was 2 terms. Even Grover Cleveland, who won, who lost, who won, which Donald Trump is trying to emulate, 2 terms. And then we came up to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So people said, okay, we'll give Roosevelt a third term because we're in the middle of war and we don't want to switch. Well, Franklin Roosevelt was extremely ill when he was running for his fourth term as president. He was past the ability to effectively serve as president. And we were damn lucky that Truman was his vice president. We were lucky he did not pick someone that didn't have a lot of leadership. You know, imagine if he picked someone like Vice President Harris, which is really low down on the polls, and the people just didn't rally around her, and we were still in World War II. What effect would that have on the morale of the American people? Those are important things. And so that's what we got to look for. We had an old Franklin Roosevelt. He didn't make it through his term. We got an old Joe Biden, and we got an old Donald Trump. I personally believe it doesn't matter who gets elected. Neither one is going to be able to physically or mentally complete their full term. And we as American people will not know about it because, for example, if I want to be the president's doctor, or I want to be Bethesda or Walter Reed director, which is an admiral, and I'm not going to say, oh yeah, the president of the United States has mental deficiencies, or there's been a drop-off since his last one. I want my job, and I hope to get promoted. That's the way it works in government. If my job is at risk, I'm not going to volunteer anything, and I will even find ways to circumvent something so I would be able to have plausible denial. Because, you know, if I'm the director of the hospital, commanding officer of the hospital, and I say, well, yep, the president is going down. It doesn't matter if it was Trump, doesn't matter if it was Biden, and I didn't like what that officer said, I go to the Secretary of the Defense, get him or her out of here, plain and simple. Because every officer serves at the pleasure of the President of the United States, and the President of the United States can dismiss and get rid of that officer anytime he so chooses, for whatever reason he so chooses, and that's the way the game plays. I was going over some of the government accountability officers' reports and everything. And I was looking at, when I went to China, I noticed there was homeless. I didn't see any young homeless. They were older people in their 70s and 80s that were homeless. And I found out that United States are really kind of neck and neck and elderly poverty. And so we've been talking about younger poverty, younger homelessness, but the thing that no one wants to talk about is elderly poverty and elderly homelessness. The government accountant office said in February 2004, it released its annual report on the nation's fiscal health, highlighting both short-term and long-term risk. There was nothing positive in this report. The federal debt held by the public, the total amount of money that the federal government owes to investors, will continue to grow faster than the economy is unsustainable. Geographic and other trends are contributing. The U.S. population is aging, health care costs are rising, pressure on Social Security and Medicare programs. The governor of Massachusetts, Mark Healey, has gone and asked the President Biden, Health and Human Services, if they could use some of the money that the federal government pays to the state of Massachusetts for Medicaid for migrant health care. And so, but one of the things is there's a shortage of hospital beds, shortage of doctors. And so just because you have more money or someone's going to pay, if I can only see 30 people a week, it doesn't matter if I give 30 other people who weren't able to come and see me, here's money to come and see me. We are going to pay for you to see me. Wait a minute. Do I knock the long-term patients I have, push them aside and bring the migrants in ahead? So those are a bunch of the questions. Social Security, Medicare, they're seeing declines in their trust fund balance. In the fiscal year 2023, federal net interest spending increased 39% from fiscal year 2022, from $475 billion to $659 billion. That's what the federal government paid on interest, $679 billion. You know what that comes to? Look at that. It is basically the federal government spends $1.6 billion every day of the year just to pay for interest. And you know what happens? The federal government doesn't have a single penny for interest. So when Uncle Sam goes and says, I need $659 billion to pay for this interest, is I'm going to go open another credit card with a line of debt that covers the 659, and I'll pay off the 659. But the credit card says, well, we're going to give you this low interest for a year, but then it's going to go up here. The GAO projects, and this is nonpartisan group, they give their reports to Congress. starting in 2029, 5 years from now, the federal government will pay more than $1 trillion in net interest every year going forward. Historically, debt has decreased in peacetime and economic expansion, but this change, unless current revenue and spending policy change by 2028, the debt will reach a historic high of 106% of gross domestic product, according to our stimulations. And if unaddressed, it will grow more than twice as fast as the economy and reach 200% of the gross domestic product by 2050. That means we have a gross domestic product. If we sold it and we took every single penny of that and tried to use it to pay off the debt, that means for 2 years, we would not fund a single thing else just to pay the debt. And why is this important? Because who stands to lose when the government starts cutting? You know who's going to stand to lose? The elderly. If you're going to be 65 or older, as the federal government starts having to go cuts, or it has to keep borrowing money, which causes inflation to go higher and higher, we could return to the inflations that we had back in the late 70s and early 80s, when inflation was over 12% a year. You know, car loans were like 16%. The home mortgages as high as 19%. When it gets that high, people stop buying. And when people stop buying, people start losing their jobs and unemployment goes up. The Congressional Research Service. People over 80 have the highest poverty level than any other age group. Approximately 13% of the people age 80 and older live in poverty, compared to 70 to 79 is 9.5%, 70 to 74, 9.6%, or 9.6 for the 65 to 69, 9.7. Women age 80 and over had the highest poverty rate among almost 15% of the women 80 and over are living in poverty rate, below poverty. And just think, 15% of the women over 80 are living below poverty. You know, back in the late 70s and early 80s, you know, you would hit scores about some of the elderly freezing because they couldn't afford the heat. The elderly were living on cat food, things like that. Who and how are we going to take care of the elderly if the federal government stops cutting money to reduce its growth? The budget's going to go up every year because it's going to have growth. There's automatic mandatory, we got mandatory VA benefits, disability benefits. If you go back to World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, there was a low number, between 10 to 20% got disabilities. Nowadays, the new group, the disability number percentage is way higher, and the rate is way higher. You know, you can get disability for a sore back, a sprained knee, a sprained ankle, but that money is mandatory. Social Security is mandatory. So there's only so much money there, and basically there's a small part of discretionary funding. And so like for some of them, the disparity between low income and high income older work households in 51 to 64 was greater in 2019 than 2007, because a lot of people in their 50s and stuff, in their late 40s, early 50s, when they had the Great Recession of 2008, lost their jobs and stuff and had to take money out of their 401s and IRAs to help pay for living expenses. In 2019, 1 out of 10 low-income households had a retirement account. Again, they had to use it for the Great Recession. The year before the Great Recession, 1 in every 5 of low income had a retirement account balance. It may not have been high, but they had some stuff there. So basically, look at, hey, 1 out of 5 did not have a retirement account 17 years ago. But 5 years ago, we're going to add 5 more of those people, so it's now 1 out of 10. High income households, over 90% of the high income households have a retirement account. Okay, so the gap between the ones all the way on the bottom and say the bottom 20 and the top 20 is just getting wider and wider. And it was just going, let's see, it is much, not much different for the middle class. In 2007, the top 20%, they had $333,000 in their retirement account. In 2019, that number was $605,000. Those were the people that were able to benefit from the Great Recession and stuff. Those were people, because after the Great Recession, the stock market had been going higher and higher, and those are a group of people that would own shares. The middle income, 21 to 79. In 2007, they had about $100,000 in their retirement plans. Now, they're about $80,000. Again, they had to take money out to survive and everything after the Great Recession. The bottom 20, they had $10,000, the ones who had it, and they were moving up to $20,000. Only 23% of low-income workers have access to a workplace retirement fund. And so 3% of the middle-income older workers contribute to an individual one. And so people are, it's getting worse. And so Social Security and things like that increases do not match what older people have to spend their money on. And so the older people's buying power has been shrinking. Even through the COVID years and stuff like that, it's shrinking. So when you go, oh, you have a 3% increase in Social Security for this year. Well, if you're getting $1,000, oh, now you get an extra $30. Okay, so Medicare goes up $5. You get $25 a month extra to spend. You see a cost of the eggs or bread or some of the simple things. The $25 is not cutting it. We don't know what your rent went up. You know, a whole bunch of different things. When the government accounting office goes, when they compared older Americans hold nearly half of the total debt in the United States. Half. Which is going to affect their retirement security. We found that older Americans are far more in debt in 2016 than they were in 1989. So you go 11, 16. So really over that 25-year gap, the Americans, between the saving and loan fiasco and a bunch of these other things, the only way they were surviving was putting it on the credit card. We also found that low-income older Americans have greater debt stress. The ratio of debts to assets. Experts examine credit cards, housing debt, etc. Carrying a credit card debt with high variable interest rate make it difficult for elderly to save for retirement. My wife's Cold Card has 29.9% interest. And she has a very high credit score. She's got some I've gone, wait a minute, 32%. 32% interest. So if she keeps $1,000 balance at Kohl's, she has to pay $300 in interest for the year. And if you look at that little corner on the right, if she goes and pays the minimum monthly payment, it will only take her 18 years to pay that amount off if she had a high balance. Okay, so if you're elderly and you have a credit card that you're paying 30% off on, you never catch up. But if you can't afford enough food or things like that, or basics, and you put it on the credit card, the reason you are putting your food on the credit card is because you don't have enough money to buy your food. So that means every month you're putting part of your food on the credit card. So every single month the balance gets higher and higher and higher, because if you have to put it on the credit card for your basics, you're only paying the minimum. And so you never get out. And that's what happens is a lot of elderly people, 65 and older, are really into debt and they can't get out. And another one that they did not think of when they come and say, hey, here, sign right here as a parent for a student loan. Oh, yeah, okay, no big deal. Well, oh, yeah, but by the way, I didn't bother telling you that you're going to pay higher interest rate. And I go, oh, yeah. You have to, if this child doesn't pay, you're stuck with the bill. Well, a bunch of parents around the country did that. And some of the kids didn't finish school. They go, oh, well, screw you, mom and dad. Some finished school and said, screw you, mom and dad, you owed me that. So people in their 60s and 70s are still paying student loan debt. In 2019, government counteroffers said 20% of older American households, 55 or older, had less than $22,000 in income. And 29% of older households had neither retirement savings plan or a defined benefit plan. Just think, we're not talking about individuals. We're talking about everybody who lives in that house. So if I'm 55 and my wife's 55, and we live together and we work at Walmart or we work at McDonald's or some of the places, okay, doing those places, we might have about $35,000 a year in household income. That doesn't bring you very far. And 29% don't have any retirement plans. And so maybe that's why, especially on the women's side, maybe their husbands died or whatever, they're working part-time. Most of them are working part-time just to survive. They need the money to take care of the basics. And it's getting worse each year. In 1998, 58% of the households 50 and over had debt. It's now 73% in 2016, and through that, it's probably about 80%. For example, from 2003 to 2019, individuals in their late 70s often had the highest share of credit card debt and student loan debt that was late than those from 50 to 74. Older individuals with credit scored below 720, including those with subprime, fair, or good credit, have medium student loan debts that were more than twice as high in 2019 as in 23. Furthermore, older individuals in the Southwest and West had the highest median mortgage and student loan debt, as well as student loan debt delinquencies in 2019 and 2023. Who would have ever thought, oh, wait a minute, I'm 70 years old, I'm paying off student loan debt? And people go, wait a minute, how are you paying off student loan debt? You graduated from college 50 years ago. Yep, but I took a parent loan out. And you know what thing about the parent loan? The president can't get rid of it. Because that's not a student loan, quote, quote, quote. So you're at 70 years old, 72 years old. you got high credit card debt, you have high student loan debt, you default on your credit card, you default on your student loans, your son's student loans or your daughter's student loans. Where do you have fiscal security? Yep, GAO. Americans 50 years or older had significantly more debt in 2016 and 2089. And for example, here's one. In 1989, comparing it to 2016, and we're using 2016 dollars, which includes all the inflation up to 2016, which gives it a different feel if they'd done it the other way. So in 1989, the median debt of households over 50, the median with 50 below and 50 above, in 2016 dollars was $18,900. For the average person, $18,900. That's kind of manageable. And you tighten your belt as people in their 50s get older, tighten their belt, hopefully pay off their house, pay off their car. But in 2016 dollars, that same group, the debt was 3 times higher, 300% higher. The median number went from 18,900 to 55,300. Okay, that's for 50 and above. The measures of older individuals' adverse outcome include their share of mortgage and credit card debt that was late by at least 50 days. 90 days, I mean. So just think. You're 61, you're 62 years old. You can't pay your mortgage. You're behind by 3 months. You're not paying your child's student loan. Look at the physical and mental stress that you are placing on your system. That financial stress has a physical and emotional effect on your system, your well-being. If you can't pay your mortgage, you're 3 months behind. You can't pay your car loan, 3 months behind. You go, wait a minute. What happened if they come and take my house? Where do I live? What happens if they come and take my car? How do I get to work? So those just every day. You get up in the morning, you go to work, then you come home, you're worrying about, what can I eat tonight? We don't have anything. We can't afford this, we can't afford that. They don't let me use the credit card anymore because I'm 3 months behind. But I have another company that will issue me a credit card, but they want 38%. You go back. I got no choice. I got to take it. So you get deeper and deeper. And then you get a guy, hey, we can help you get out of debt. So it goes on and on and on. And then what happens? You have a stroke. You have a heart attack. You have a medical incident, a very serious medical incident. and you can't work anymore. Oh, you can go on Social Security disability. Oh, so I go on Social Security disability. I'm getting about $1,800 a month. Holy crap. How can I live on $1,800 a month when I was making $3,000 a month? I got sick. Or you may be, the point is, you're not sick enough to go on Social Security disability, but you can't work. And you go, well, I'll take early retirement at 62, decreasing my monthly Social Security check by about $300, by about 30% for the rest of your life. So the federal government's inability to control its debt, the amount of interest it could be in 5 years from now, paying $1 trillion a year, is having a big impact on people 65 and older. So we got to do something. The government can't keep spending more and more money that it doesn't have. Okay, if you're 65 and older, you don't have the ability to pick up another job. If I'm 35 and I need money, I can work a second job. But we at 65 and older, we don't have that ability. And I don't want to work until I'm 70, 80, plus 90 years old. So let's think about it. Let's ask the politicians how they're going to stop this train. And so, goodbye.